Hello and welcome to Fueling Around with me, Jason Plato, and the needle on my record. It's Dave Vitti.
Hello.
Fueling Around is powered by Adrian Flux. As the UK's largest specialist insurance broker, Adrian Flux will tailor a quote to your exact needs and help you save money on your car, your bike, or even your home insurance. Now then, needle on my record. How are you, mate?
I'm good, thank you. I'm excited because it's a tense week in the world of motorsport, as you can testify for, right? But not only that, we've got somebody on the show today who can bring the whole drama to life.
Absolutely. So our guest today is quite simply a legend. A pioneer of electronic music in the 80s and 90s, one of the best known and most respected international DJs of all time, and now also a serious player, and I mean a really serious player in the motorsport world, with his own racing team. It can, of course, only be the one and only Mr. Carl Cox.
Hey.
Hello, mate. How are you?
Very, very happy to be on the show today. And I know, we've been asking quite a few times for me to come along. Obviously me being a very busy DJ now, outside of the pandemic, every single moment counts and matters. I make all these events, I make all the music events, make all the motorsport events. I don't even have time to sleep that much. I've had about 4 hours kit, and here I am.
Good lad. Well, mate, we'll tell the listeners, because our paths crossed last night. In as far as I was getting on the plane, you were coming in. So I was leaving the Isle of Man, and you were coming in. And well, let's talk about that. I'm a virgin. I lost my Isle of Man cherry this week. I've never been before. I've wanted to. I know a few. I'm good mates with McGuinness. I know Michael Dunlop, which obviously drives your team. Oh my God!
Yeah,
it's insane, isn't it?
Yeah, it's as it's been going for many, many, many years before our forefathers before that. When there was an ability for one motorcycle to race another motorcycle, that's when it started. I think it was 1907 where it all started to happen. Can you imagine? There was no road. It was just an idea of racing around some sort of field with gates to open for the races to go through, for the gates to shut on farmland. Can you imagine it? Back in the day, there was no pit boards and there was no electronics to help you with a motorcycle. It was just literally some guys in some old overalls with some sort of tin hat whizzing around the field and some rickety old motorbikes. To present day, Peter Hickman.
It was sensational, wasn't it?
Fastest man on two wheels around that discourse is to behold. People just cannot understand when you're going through a place called Kirkmichael. Now, I live here on the Isle of Man. I've had a house here for nearly 3 years now, so I know my way around this place a little bit. Now, Kirkmichael is a quaint little town village. It goes like 20 to 30 miles an hour through it. And these guys go, 160.
Yeah.
You whoosh, and you just think, that's fast.
What is phenomenal. I'm half Manx. Half my family are from the Isle of Man and still got family over there. So it's a long time since I've been. I went to the TT as a little boy. But Jason and I have said many, many times, and we've been lucky enough to have Foggy on this show, and we've also had John McGuinness on this show. And it's just unlike any other kind of motorsport, because you go to a track and you see cars and you see bikes and whatever, and you get a thrill from watching it. But as Jason can testify, having just been on the island for the last couple of days, and he was at the bottom of Bray Hill, and they're pulling 180 miles an hour down there. It's just next level.
Yeah, absolutely. My first experience was, actually Hillbury first, and then I went to Bray Hill, the place called the Secret Garden, and you kind of go around the back of some people's backyards and that, and you go.
That's what I did.
The Secret Garden.
That's exactly what I did.
You go through and you think, where am I going? Does anyone know we come around the back?
It's that little tiny little lane down the back, it's all a bit overgrown, and you jump over a head. It's just great, though, isn't it?
It's brilliant. You can't explain this stuff to anyone. You just go and experience it, and you come out and you're in someone's front garden, and they give you a cup of tea and some biscuits and that. Yeah. There's no fancy grandstand or hospitality. There's nothing. It's just you, a bit of grass, and a road of which the rider's going to go down, and it's called Aggo's Leap for a reason. Because when I first put my camera out, not too far, obviously, to film the bikes coming past, to get that kind of idea of speed, it's very difficult to capture that on the film unless you record it all and then do a slow motion of what they're doing and how they're getting through. And you think that they're coming down that hill on Aggo's Leap on both wheels. They're not. They're coming down that road on the back wheel at 165 and 70 miles an hour to then land and then to get back on the gas all the way down the quarter bridge. Now that first part from leaving the start line to going down Bray Hill, the riders have actually no real idea of the temperature of tyre until they put the brakes on and they turn right. And then they go, oh, hang up out, mate. Yeah, I've got a bit of grip. Bang, and they're on it.
Well, funny enough, that was one of the things I was explaining to Dave is that, you know, in my stuff, we have a thing called a green flag lap. Right. Where you know, we go out, we feel the car, we know, but they get on the bikes as well, you know, at the start line, the tire warmers come off, and the right hand side of the rear tire and the right hand side of the front tire is shiny and brand new until they turn in to the bottom of the hill at 180 miles an hour. Yeah, I mean, bonkers. Yeah. And another thing which really struck me, and the listeners will be interested in this, is, you know, when you jump over that back path, the back passageway to get in people's gardens. Well, there was normal life going on back there. So there's a dog in the garden. There's little kids kicking footballs around. I'm like, hold on, what's happening here?
It's just another day.
Yeah, it was just incredible.
And it's real stuff. And this is what it's like with the Isle of Man TT. I mean, obviously with car racing, you know, at certain tracks, you know, runoff, you know, got tire wars, and you know, the bikers have got air suits, and the drivers have got roll cages. Yeah, these guys have a little piece of plastic around a tree saying safeguard.
Yeah, I know. When I saw some foam on a telephone box, I'm like, really? What's that going to do? Yeah, but they are a different breed, aren't they?
I was watching the highlights last night of yesterday, obviously, and Michael's race, and absolutely to the limit, and Dean Harrison, and it was just phenomenal to watch. I was absolutely captivated. But there was one bit that I noticed, and again, it comes from having chatted to John McGuinness a little while ago, and it was the bit when they start off at the top of Bray Hill and they get that tap on the back of the shoulder. And that was the bit where John kind of said, he kind of goes, it's such a significant moment to a rider. And he was also saying that, you know, before he gets to that point, he always looks over and he has this sort of ritual where he looks at his son and he looks at his daughter and whatever before he gets on the bike. And without dressing it up, it is literally, well, he's making sure that he sees them one last time, because that's how serious it is.
Yeah. Yeah. And it has been, as you can imagine, this week it's had its strategies.
Absolutely.
And condolences to the family, of course, and friends of the riders that unfortunately died this week. And but everyone knows what it's, you know, motorsport is dangerous. We all know it. And even for my own efforts, I'm not sure many people know that I'm actually a professional drag racer in a car called a Pro Mod, which they race in the States quite a lot in the NHRA racing series alongside the top fuel cars as well as your funny cars, and my car that I have obtained. It's not like I'm a DJ now, I'm a drag racer. I've been doing it for absolutely years. And even when I started off at Santa Pod Raceway back in the 80s with a 3-litre Capri automatic.
I hope it had a vinyl roof.
100% black vinyl roof. You know what? My Capri actually had reclining seats.
Did it?
Yeah.
I had a white Capri as well, Carl, but unfortunately mine wasn't the 3-litre. And when I used to go out with girls, and I used to say that I had a white Capri, and they all thought I was joking until I turned up in it. Like, oh my God, you really have? And I had the fluffy dice.
No, you did. But was your Capri a 1300L?
No, it was a 1.6 laser. But if you remember the 1.6 laser, where it said laser on the back, there was a very O-like A, which made it look very much like 1.6 loser.
Here's the thing, Carl. I bet Dave will remember the registration plate on that car.
Absolutely. It was D205WMY, 1986.
Wow, no way. Yeah, I had way too many cars to remember my plates. Absolutely.
Let's talk about this drag racer, though, because I've seen this Pro Mod of yours. I've seen videos of it, rather. And this is absolutely insane. Jason, if you haven't seen it, it's just the acceleration must just take your breath away.
Yeah, I drove a rail car. I think a Pro Mod rail car in Dubai.
Yes, I saw that, yeah.
Mate, I just what's going on? I scared the living daylights out to me. And then saw some big stuff, saw some top fuelers. And you'd literally have to witness it to you've got to be there and feel it. It's insane, isn't it?
Yeah,
mega buzz, I bet.
Again, you know, I really, you know, appreciate, you know, all types of extreme sports and racing and even the racing that you do, Jason. It's so close racing, and I'm like with your eyes, you're pushing them and getting them love taps and everything.
Me too. I drive like that sometimes.
And then with your eye, put your head on the steering wheel, man. Anyway, you know, I really enjoy that on the edge stuff.
Yeah.
And for me, racing, I mean, I went from, you know, very humble, grassroots, to drive to Capri to the track to Santa Pod Raceway on a Sunday morning. It's run what you brung. So I used to basically, if it broke, I either got towed home by a piece of rope because I couldn't afford a trailer, or I drove it home with, like, instead of 8 cylinders, 5. All that kind of stuff. It all happens. You know what I mean? You get there by hook or by crook, but it's all for racing. You know, you get on that line, and you get to the Christmas tree, and you bump the car in, and the 2 bulbs are on, and you see this guy over in the corner. You just want to get him off the tree, and you want to beat him. And the guy goes, pow, and he goes, leaves you for dead. You're like, and you got it all. You've got your foot's flat. You go, come on, Betsy. Come on, you're like this in the car, and you run like 23 seconds at 86 miles an hour. You're like, woo! At least I went down. You know what I mean? That's the thing about it. I got my ass down there, and so. I love that thrill. For me, in my efforts of motorsport, from racing anything, that's I know I can do. So I took that up to about I would say 85 to 87. I stopped racing because I just couldn't afford it, and I was DJing at the time at the Crossroads. So at the end of the day, my cars will forget me to the events, and then eventually I kind of forgot about drag racing. I was just so into it, but at the same time, I was riding motorbikes, and I didn't have much time for motorbike. So I kind of left those 2 things behind. Eventually, you know, with my musical efforts, I got to where I believe I should be. And then I obviously went to surpass that into where I am now today. But then I had a little bit of change to go, right, I think I'll get back into bikes and get back into motorsport. But the thing was, when I got to Australia, because I lived there half a year, all the guys there are pure petrol heads in Australia. You know, you can't speak to anyone unless they've got a Holden or an old Ford or stories of all of that. And I'm like, oh my God, you guys are petrol heads too. Yippee. Yeah. So they go, so I bought this old Holden. It's called a Holden Premier, and it's 1971. And I love the car. It's bloody awesome. Big story about it. It was in a magazine called Unique Cars. It went round in 2009 at Targa, Tasmania. And
I'll tell you, it's on the Tassie.
Yeah, it went round Tassie, 4 on the floor. It's a straight 6 at 345 DCOE carburetors on it and all that sort of. So I'm like, whoa, that sounds good. Sounds like a Lotus, blah blah blah. Anyway, they don't really care about Pommy motors over there because they're 4 pots and they're just weak and don't even talk to me about it. But if it's a V8, now we're flexing. So anyway, so when I bought this car, this Holden, I bought it and I said, I bought it for the magazine and it's got like a straight 6 in it. It's got something like 140 horsepower. They all laughed at me. They went, you got stitched up, mate. And I'm like, what are you talking about? It's like, they said, no. We're going to fix this car for you, Coxie. I'm like, oh, okay, here we go. So they yanked out that straight 6 straight away, sold it to some guy that had some sort of boat they could put on the back of. And that was what it was worth. And then they put in a 440 small block race-tuned V8 in it with a two-speed power glide. And then the 9-inch Ford back end and everything that needed for it to go a bit quicker. 620 horsepower. I'm like, I've never had 620 horsepower. Yeah. And in fact, I haven't even been in a car in drags since the 80s, and he built this for me to go back on the track with. So brilliant. I was like, okay, I'm intrigued. I got in this car. I did a burnout and everything. I didn't need water or anything. It just had too much power. And it went down. When I went down in it, and I did like a 12-second pass. They thought it was weak. I thought that was the fastest
thing ever. Yeah, brilliant.
Anything in my whole born days, you know, because this car was actually built for a 10-second car. So anyway, eventually we got it to 10 seconds. And then I bought another car that did 10 seconds, which was in the shape of a Mustang. And I bought another 10-second car, which is in the shape of a Plymouth Roadrunner. I wanted to go faster. So they built me a Mark 1 Capri, which goes right back to my heritage of racing back in the day. Yeah. Could I get in this car? At the beginning, no. But I could get in it once they had modified the idea of me getting in and out of it, which I did. I got in the Capri. and they basically built a 6-second pass.
6-second car.
6-second car at over 200 miles an hour. I thought they were joking. They were ridiculous. Single turbo, 2,000 horsepower. It's insane. And it still looks like a Capri. It's incredible. And this thing is super, super fast in its class. So I get in this car and pow, you know, I'm now doing 208 or 206 miles an hour at 6.8 seconds. Is as quick as I've been PB and that thing. Yeah. So I've learned over the years to feel this power and energy. But I couldn't go any faster in this car. I wanted to go faster. So the Pro Mod was it. So I went over to the States, spoke to the guys about the Pro Mod, did the shakedowns in the car. I loved it, brought it back to Australia. And now I'm doing 5 9-second passes at 250 miles an hour plus in that car. Now, I did crash the car. This is where it comes into, okay, having a passage, because when I was going through the speed trap and I pulled for the parachutes, only one came out. And the amount of real estate that you're gaining before you get to the end is very short. And I'm trying to brake.
Did you go off the end then?
I turned. I don't know how I got it to turn. I've been watching how you get the car around the back end. You know what I mean? How you slide.
Not a dragster, Christ.
Yeah, I know. I'm thinking, oh my God! And I just got it round, but not enough. It just understeered, and it just kind of almost went straight, hit the wall, and I kind of went up the wall, rode it at 180 miles an hour to stop. Man. So I lifted the tail, but that's kind of like my biggest danger. My most danger isn't about the burnout or start line or getting off the 0 to 60 1 second. Bang, you're going half track and you're pulling about 2 to 3 Gs and you're going down it, and the boost in the 2 turbos, they come on boost and you're hitting it even more so. It's when you go to pull the chutes, call it the laundry, it comes out, it takes another 30 millisecond to come out, then eventually comes out, and you feel it come, 2 chutes come out, and you're trying to stop, which it will do if 2 chutes come out, but it won't do if only 1 comes out. And that's where the danger comes in, because the race isn't over until you actually stop.
Yeah. I was always under the impression, Carl, that motorsport and racing was something that perhaps your musical career had afforded you, and it went in that stage. But actually, that's not the case, is it? Very much you were racing before, and almost the two things sort of going side by side. So to be in a situation now where you've got this fantastic racing team, this must be a dream come true, isn't it? To actually be able to fulfill both of your life passions at the same time.
Yeah, I feel very fortunate to be able to do that. And again, in the sense of tragedy, Keith Flint, who was also supporting Hilliard back in the day with the Team Traction Control, was very much a biker and very much into motorcycle racing and the Isle of Man TT. But he came very synonymous with that. And it wasn't that I was following his path or anything. I actually applauded him based on that he was highlighting a sport of which interested someone like the likes of Keith. And me, I always watched it on TV, the Isle of Man, and I always had my eyes closed when I'm watching the sidecars go around, because that camera's right there, and all you see like white lines going like, and you're thinking, the back end's going, and they go round the other corner. You're just like, how are they doing this? But I always loved sidecar racing, even before the Isle of Man. I was getting the Brands Action, watching them go around there.
Oh, were you? Oh, cool.
Yeah, I watched them very much so. And then when I had an opportunity to support a sidecar team from New Zealand, because I live in Australia, called Smith and Shorter Racing at that particular time. All they needed was some tyres, entry fees, and some oil, fuel. I put a change into them, and they basically did really well with my support. So that's how Carl Cox Motorsports really started, was through a sidecar team, of which I entered 2 times in the Isle of Man TT with my own sidecar team, which we did really well, coming in 11th place both years.
Wow,
and then I supported Tim Reeves Racing, which he's still racing here today, and he put my sidecar up the order for 2 years also on the 3rd step. So now I support Dave Molyneux in his racing efforts with the KTM, of which he built everything. I love Dave. He's kind of like that guy in a shed, sawing things up. He's a real hands-on guy. You know what I mean? He just got the KTM to go and get a motor. And they were quite interested in his efforts. And he's the only one, that will go out there and challenge himself based on what people think they can't do. And he went and he came 4th on you know, he just outside the step. Yes. I mean, amazing, you know.
And that team now, in terms of you know, your roster of riders, it's royalty now, isn't it? Yeah. I mean, you've got some really special people in your team, you know, riders, and that's incredible. Well done, Carl. That's great.
Thank you. It really was organic, you know. It wasn't like I set out for this to happen. I mean, Michael Dunlop only came about because he came to New Zealand, and we hosted him, and he was interested in our sidecar, and he goes, "Oh, give us a go." So he went.
Did he really? Wow.
Give us a go, right? And he put one of our swingers on the back of it, and they took it round, you know. And he's like, "Oh, this is great," you know. And he had aspirations of maybe in the future to do it, to do sidecar racing as well, because you know, anyone knows how to get around that track, it's him. But I think what he wants is to be the king of the mountain. You know, he's on his 20th, you know, TT win now, so he needs one more. He'll be the king of the mountain over Joey and over McGinnis. And then, so he's got 3 more races left. Yeah. And I think that's what he's really wants to achieve more than anything else. Yeah. And I'm just hoping and making sure that even if he doesn't get to the step, that he gets to enjoy the moment of what he's done so far. I mean, he's already joined the greats. He's
well, I mean, his name alone. I mean, we're talking about motorcycling and in particular TT royalty when you've got the surname Dunlop.
Yeah, I mean, if I had the name Dunlop, it wouldn't be for racing. I'm not sure.
But you know what? Joking aside, Carl, is exactly what you just said, and watching the highlights last night. Is that it's one thing for someone like you to be involved in motorsport and have your name and the team or whatever on the side of the bikes and the side of the cars. But because you've got such good people involved now, is that, you know, you've got the guy who's winning that race, and actually to see your name on the side of the tank on that bike is fantastic. I mean, it's fantastic for us to see, but it must be very special for you to see as well.
It really is, you know, and I never thought in a million years that I would ever have the opportunity to be involved in such a coveted race like the Isle of Man TT. I was always just the punter that would just sit on the side of some grassy knoll, you know, with a cup of soup, you know, freezing my nuts off, going, "Why am I here?" You know what I mean? You know, and what should I go past? Go, "Oh, that's why I'm here." If I could add and help out, you know, which I have done and still doing, anyone that has a campaign based on their self-belief and ability to do it. And then that's what I like. I come from a working family. You know, I was poor to begin with. I worked hard for everything, still working hard now. These guys work really hard all the way through. I mean, I'm out having beer and lunching and this. These guys, I mean, I went to go and see Michael one year and his 600 was in pieces. And I'm just like, I've been able to put all that back. You know what I mean? It's like, they're cleaning everything, nut and bolt, checking everything before we go back out again. And that's really, really important. But the dedication of that is very, very high, very high.
Yeah. I mean, it's in their blood, isn't it? I mean, it's, you know, every moment of every day, they're thinking, they're prepping, I mean, I saw Michael on the Spanners this week in the morning. You know, it's just, they live and breathe, and it's in their psyche, isn't it?
Yeah, it's 100%, you know, and I, you know, with my association with Michael back in the early days of me meeting him, everyone's like, "Oh, you can't talk to him. Oh, he's pig-headed. Oh, he's this, that, and the other." He's just focused.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just focused on on the job at hand, and that's really important. I think when you're putting your life in such a like a position of where he is, you can't be asked sitting there with dolly birds and you know being on game shows and all this sort of stuff. It's not even in his criteria or thinking about that, because when he gets on the bike, that's his happy place. I did an interview with him, and it was very rare that he even interviews anyone. But you know, I can talk the ears of a hind donkey. But anyway, he's got an Escort RS2000. I've got one. You know, and all this sort of stuff. What about the history of motorsports, and got on like a house on fire. But I had to ask the question. Now, I've been around on my motorbike around Phillip Island, and I love Phillip Island. It's an awesome, beautiful, fast, you know, tricky at places, but it's amazing. And I really can't stand a couple of areas in it, which either like my nemesis. And Lukey Heights is one of them. I get a Lukey Heights.
I knew you were going to say that.
And blind. Yeah. You're like, oh, and you go up, man, and blind. You come down to MG, like on the back. Oh shit! Oh, I'm going to change that. Well, be back on. And then I go, and then I'm like, and then I go down 11, sweepy around the 12. And you get your horse down, head up down the garden and say, look at me, I'm Valentino Rossi. Whoa, up one bar. And you go into turn one, and you think, oh shit!
Yeah, that's a proper turn.
Turn 2, 3. And you go, boom, 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 on to 4.
Yeah.
I love that. But the rest of it, you can keep. You can keep the hay sheds. You can keep all of that. I'm not into it. But anyway, I said to Michael, the whole track, I said, there's got to be some points which it's just, your nemesis, you're not really that fast in, you're not really interested in, or I said, he said, no, Coxie. He goes, I love all of it.
All of it.
All of it. I said, well, even the hairpin, because I've been around the hairpin, even in the daytime at 30 mile an hour, and I'm still like, oh, look out, and they're like, all of it. And he said, if I'm not on the line, I'm not racing. What? On that left line, by where the hedges are, and the trees and everything else that goes. He goes, if I'm not on the line, I'm not racing. When you see him come down from Kate's Cottage towards Breakneck Bar, right?
Yeah.
He's in the middle of the road, and he goes, and he hits the apex, and he comes out, and he goes left all the way down onto Hilbury, but he comes out in the middle of the road. But you'll see it. The dust is kicking up. Bang.
Oh yeah, he's on the limit. He's on the ragged edge.
All the other racers are on the other side of that line. It's the reason why Dean Harrison didn't quite catch him the other day. So you know what? That's where Marco's head's at.
Oh no, he's at the top of his game, isn't he? He's at the very top of his game, and he's like you said, he's focused. He's in the zone.
And I think that you have to be. I mean, when you were saying before, Carl, about the fact that people sort of said that, well, Michael is just focused. I mean, if you're doing that, you've got every reason to be focused. Carl, let's talk about cars for a second. You've described yourself as having owned somewhere in the region of 100 cars to date. Is that a realistic figure?
No, so here it is. I've got roughly about 85 to 90 motorcycles, including race bikes as well.
Now?
Yeah, so in my car collection, I know, it's ridiculous. I can't ride them all. I understand. There's a problem that I have. I will talk to someone about it at some point.
Oh, no, don't try and cure it, Slush.
I will one day, but you know what? I'm just enjoying that I have all these things, and I'm not enjoying them because of batteries. If I don't put them on bloody trickle charge, and I want to ride that bike, and it goes click, 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 I'm like, you're joking. Anyway, that's another story. But the cars is something of which I've always loved. Right back in the 60s when my dad was I don't know what happened with my dad. And it's not around, unfortunately, now. But he always ended up with Fords. Ford Angular, Ford Pops, Ford Cortina, Ford Corsair. I mean, nobody knows about Ford Corsairs. Only seems that I know about Ford Corsair. We go, what's the Ford Corsair? What, a 2008 Ford Corsair? You never, what? Where have you been, under a rock? Everyone knows about Mark 1 Cortina, Mark 1 Cortina Lotuses, Mark 1 Cortina Supers, Mark 1 Cortina 500 GTs. Well, I have 2 Mark 1 Cortinas. I've got 1 Mark 1 Cortina Lotus original. I've got 1 Mark 1 Cortina, which I'm turning into a hill climb car with a Cosworth engine in, which is going to scare the bejesus out of me. But anyway, I don't care. It's got like it's got this, it's a petrol gearbox. Bang, bang, bang. It's in the build at the moment, and I can't wait to drive that thing. But in the sense of cars, I've always been into muscle cars, Mustangs, Pontiacs, anything GM in the sense of Dodge. I have about 25 of them. And got a beautiful 1965 Corvette, which is obviously not the split window. It's a full window at the back. It's inside. It's red in leather interior and not leather, sorry, vinyl, but chrome. Yeah. Beautiful. Yeah. Sidewinder pipes, and I'm in it, and I feel like, because remember years ago the astronauts used to get given these cars, because they used to look like planes.
What, the Corvettes?
The Corvettes, astronauts. Back in the Apollo 13 and 10 and 12, they actually used to have them convertibles, and they were giving us gifts and at that particular moment in time. And when you see this car rolls out, it's still futuristic. It's still out the box. Yeah. Really, it's incredible. Slow as you like, and it doesn't go around corners. You'd hate it, Jason.
Oh, mate, I know them well because I drive at the Revival in the TT. I drive a big block 67 Stingray, and it's I love it, but it takes me a lap or two to get rid of the intense fear because the bugger doesn't stop and the bugger won't turn. But guess what? It's pretty good at going in a straight line.
Oh, yeah.
It's amazing. Yeah, it's the fastest car at the TT, which is full of some amazing cars. It's the fastest car in a straight line. And I think the best we came in with, the best we've ever come in that car is 7th. And and if there's a cloud where there's any rain, I tell you what, I tighten the belts up. and they're tight enough as they are. Yeah. So I love a muscle car. They're phenomenal, aren't they? Yeah.
I think if you're not a driver, you are not going to enjoy them.
Yeah.
Because the thing is, all the niceties that you have in cars these days that don't exist. You had to drive these cars, and back in my day, all I ever drove was rubbish cars. But I had to drive them the best I could without hitting anyone else or crashing them myself. So when I get back in these cars, it's all about how it used to be. And I kind of like that nostalgia ideal of owning a car that you can really enjoy from a driver's perspective.
Yeah.
And I love the fact. I mean, the modern cars today are very nice, and I saw your program the other day on the Bugatti Zonda. You appreciate it for what it is. It does stops, turns, does everything. Beautiful car, but nobody's got Bugatti Zonda money. So you know what I mean? That's the problem. I mean, if I could afford a Bugatti Zonda, and then I would have some sort of affinity with it. But the thing is, it has everything you need. I mean, even when you're talking about the interwovenness of the carbon fiber with titanium.
Titanium. Yeah, it was. Yeah, it is.
I mean, who has the ability to have that in a Cortina? Nobody.
Yeah.
So this is the thing about the old cars. You buy it as it was built from factory. All the door shuts don't shut properly.
Yeah.
The door you got to slam twice because you need to get a bit more welly. All that sort of stuff. They don't shut the doors or anything. You got to give them a bit of a whack and all that kind of character about them all. I just find it really endearing. So, and also because I grew up in the era where I couldn't afford these cars at the time, all I had was scale electric models, or I had just models of the cars, which I used to collect, and then maybe one day I would have one for real. And then I just found this car, and I bought that, and I found that car, and I bought that, and now I have a really beautiful collection of English cars, of course. I've got a Mark 1 Mexico, got 2 RS 2000 Mark 1, Mark 1, Mark 2.
RS 1800, you got one of those?
That's one of the cars that's eluded me at the moment. And if you do find one, you got to get your money. The Guardian's on the money.
Yeah. Oh, I know.
It's a dirty old Ford from Dagenham. They're called Dagenham dustbins for a reason. And you want how much will you pay? I know. But I've always really enjoyed all cars, not just Fords. And I actually remember having my first actual car was a Morris Traveller. And,
was it?
And it only started up with the crank handle.
With the wooden back on it.
All the wood was it was all rusty and it's all the wood was falling to pieces. I paid £20 for it. I saved up like £2 a week for it, and I managed to pay for it. And I've got this car. I've got a car. I don't care what it is. It's a Morris Traveller, and the engine works only if you crank start it.
Brilliant. How good's that?
Oh my God, the brakes on the floor. It wouldn't go in the first when you're going along. Here you go. No sequential. But I learned how to drive with that car at the time. It fell to pieces at the end of the day. Went to the scrapyard. He couldn't save it, unfortunately. But yeah, that was my first car.
Brilliant. So here's a question for you. Out of all the cars you've owned, Carl, and you have to pick one and stick with it for the rest of your life, what is it and why?
That's a
bastard of a question, isn't it?
That's a tough question for everybody, but I think for somebody that has owned and does own as much as you do, that's even harder.
Oh man, I don't get stumped that often to answer a question, but that one stumped me. I mean, I find the goodness in everything. If it was a roller skate with an engine on it, I'd be like, woohoo! But it coming to cars and all the cars I've ever owned. And the cars that I've found in and everything, I probably have to say the Humble Mini.
Hey,
850.
Do you know what? A few of our guests, that's their go-to, and it's a great go-to. Yeah,
I've got 3 of them at the moment, and I've got one a Mini Cooper, from just before early 90s, which has done 24 miles on it. It hasn't even been registered.
Is that right?
It's incredible. I cannot believe that I found this car. I bought it. It's in the Cooper colors and everything.
Yeah,
amazing. I actually have one because I had actually aspirations of driving, racing my Mini Cooper that I have for a thing called Mighty Mini Racing. Yeah, and I'm not sure if you know about it. They've got Super Minis and Mighty Minis, and I have one. I bought one. I paid $6,000 for it. I can get in and out, which is really good because they're quite small. But I never had time to get myself around. But I also bought another little Mini Mayfair with a 1250 in it, 1275 in it, and it's got nice wide tire. It's got silver. It's got leather interior, really nice. So when I do my London to Brighton, I'll do London to Brighton. Here's a bit of a cheat actually. So yeah, London to Brighton. I live in Brighton, but you got to go to Crystal Palace to go from there to Brighton. Yeah. So I kind of enter. Come out my house, turn right, because I live in Hove, and then just go down the free front and go, hey, I made it. Put a flag outside and everything. Like,
take the adoration. Carl looks clean cut. Yeah. Carl looks a bit too clean. I like to keep it nice.
Don't tell anyone, okay? Because there's a secret.
No. Carl, I've got another question that may or may not stump you. This is entirely hypothetical, but imagine you're told that your collection of vehicles can only consist of cars or bikes. One category has to go. Which one is staying?
Oh man, what are you guys doing to me today? Which one are you? It's like cutting off the left testicle right now. You know, it's like, is that one coming? Is that one staying or is it going? I'll be like, oh, I don't know. You know? Oh my God. I suppose. What, my collection? Not no one else.
Yeah. No. Yours. It can either be cars or bikes, and you've got to pick one, and that's it.
One that's got to go.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, I do love British motorcycles. I really enjoy them, and they're probably going to hate me for this, but I don't think they should, because at the end of the day, they should know that I've had the worst experience on my Norton that you can think of. And it's a modern Norton, not like an old one. It's beautiful. I spent a fortune on it. Carbon fiber wheels, exhaust. I bought nice exhaust, everything. And my first experience with it is that it wouldn't charge, and they said, it's a battery. They changed the battery, and it actually was an alternator. But that was a year later, and then what happened? Then all my dash lights have come up, and I haven't been able to speak to anyone about fixing them. And so I don't know if I'm in neutral, I don't know if it's in gear, I don't know if I've got petrol in it, I don't know if I get petrol in it. And then when I'm going along, it kind of has a little wonder about it. I said, oh yeah, the destination of the bike, all this kind of stuff. And I've had the worst experience with that thing, so that can get the boot. I do. I love it. It's in British racing green and everything. It's just so gorgeous. But I'm disappointed on the after sales service, and I'm disappointed on its reliability. I've got all these motorbikes. I've never been sat on the road because that no one cared about what I was saying about my bike. So yeah, the Norton can go. For the car that I have, oh man, the car I think that would get the boot if I was going to boot one out would probably. I'm trying to think of the car that's not working at the moment. I can't answer it.
Look at that. Got him. We've got him.
You see, we've got him stumped, JP.
I can't do it. It's impossible. Really. You got me on that one. I love them all.
I'll tell you what, this question, without doubt, we won't stump you with this next one because it's a blinder and it fits perfect with who you are and what you are.
Yeah.
So we always think that music and motoring, they're perfect fit, aren't they? So we want to know your fantasy drive. You know, where are you? Where are you going? What roads you're on? What you listen to? And more importantly, what are you in or on?
Right. So fantasy drive is in a Ferrari, going to Monaco. And you know, music wise will always be techno music. But it's the thing that drive to Monaco and you're going through
the tunnels.
The tunnels.
Yeah. And the tunnels, windows down, even in the Spider.
Yeah. Oh, you have to do it.
I know. It's great, isn't it?
It's one of those things you go,
here we go.
Windows down, drop a couple of gears, Yeah. Bah! Bah! You're like, oh my God. You just want to go around and go back and do it again. You're like, oh, wow. And he didn't, that road to Monaco and going for those tunnels.
It's cool, isn't it?
Unbelievable. Yeah. And I believe, I mean, he could do it in a Lamborghini, he could do anything. But I think a V12 Ferrari is the one to go through, get the windows down, and then go and enlighten yourself on the reason why you bought that car, you drove it down there in the first place.
And then finish off with a cheeky little Carl Cox DJ set as the sun sets in Monaco, just to complete the day.
Yeah, absolutely. I did play for Red Bull for a few years ago, and Jimmy's Bar played there as well. Always have fun when I get to Monaco, and unfortunately they're looking to scrap that bloody thing at the moment, and I don't think they should.
No.
At the end of the day, I think if the drivers are okay.
It's got to stay. It's part of the furniture. It's part of the history. It has to stay.
It really is, and I don't know how difficult it is, but I can only imagine how difficult it can be. But if you win that thing, then you deserve it. I mean, if you look at what happened last week, it's the worst could happen. Is it going to rain? Isn't it? Full start. No, now we're starting and all that sort of stuff. It's all part of the game. But eventually, Ferrari, it came through. It happened. There you go. You won. And Ferrari was on the back foot. Red Bull came forward. All the usual suspects couldn't get up in the order. Yeah, it's brilliant. I kind of like the idea of it. It's that technical and that difficult. That's the kind of like the endearment of it all, and it's been like that for many years. So take that away, I think would be a bit of a crying shame, really.
Mate, I agree with you. Monaco just simply has to stay, but unfortunately, that's it for this week. I could sit here and talk to you all day long.
Oh, it's been absolutely brilliant. I've loved it, and what a way to close the series, Carl. It's been superb.
I could talk all day about cars and bikes and my missions and all sorts of things going on. Maybe we do another one and we could do an update of wherever I've ended up.
Consider yourself booked anytime you like.
So that is it. The end of this series of Fueling Around, powered by Adrian Flux. As the UK's largest specialist insurance broker, Adrian Flux will tailor a quote to your exact needs and help you save you money on your car, your bike, or even your home insurance. Dave, as always, thank you. But a huge thanks to our special guest this week, the one and only Mr. Carl Cox.
Thank you.
No, it's been excellent. Thank you, Carl. Don't forget, you can get in touch with us on Twitter at Jason Plato or at David Vitti. And if you've liked what you've heard, feel free to give us a 5-star rating, press the subscribe button, and share the podcast on all your socials.
Thanks for listening. And guess what? We'll be back in the autumn. We'll see you then.